In a small village, nestled among rolling hills, winding rivers, and dense forests, lived a cheerful 10-year-old boy named Eli. Though his family was poor, with just enough to eat most days, Eli possessed a treasure far greater than any wealth: a kind heart. He cared deeply for people, even when their struggles were beyond his full understanding. One bright morning, his mother handed him a small loaf of bread and a few pieces of fruit. "Eli," she said gently, her voice full of love, "this is all we have for today. If you see someone in need, remember, even a little given with love is worth more than gold." Eli nodded, his heart absorbing her words. He carefully placed the food into his small bag and set off toward the river, his mind filled with plans to play and maybe catch a fish. As he walked along the dusty path, a figure caught his eye. A woman was sitting under the shade of a large oak tree. Her clothes were tattered, and a deep weariness was etched on her face. She looked tired, hungry, and utterly alone. As Eli watched, she bowed her head and whispered a small prayer, her gaze fixed on the empty ground before her. At that very moment, Eli's own stomach grumbled loudly, reminding him of the bread in his bag. A part of him, the hungry part, urged him to keep the food for himself. It was his lunch, after all. But then, his mother's words echoed in his mind, followed by a lesson he'd learned in Sunday school: "It is more blessed to give than to receive." The phrase felt heavy and important. He took a deep, steadying breath. His small feet carried him forward until he stood before the woman. He opened his bag, the smell of fresh bread filling the air. "Ma'am," he said softly, holding out the loaf and the fruit, "I don't have much, but I think you need this more than I do." The woman looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. When she saw the food offered by the small boy, her eyes filled with tears that traced paths down her dusty cheeks. She took the food with a trembling hand and whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "God bless you, child. May He bless you abundantly." A warmth spread through Eli's chest, a feeling so pure and powerful that it pushed away the gnawing hunger in his belly. He had done the right thing. Eli continued his journey to the river, but his plans to play had faded. His heart was full. He sat by the water's edge, not fishing, but praying silently. "Lord," he whispered to the gentle breeze, "thank you for helping me do the right thing. Please, help those who have nothing. Please take care of that lady." The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet reflection. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Eli headed home. That evening, sitting with his family, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman under the tree. Her grateful eyes, her whispered blessing. Something new had stirred inside him, a feeling he couldn't yet name, but he knew it was profound and special. It was the seed of compassion, planted and watered by a single act of kindness. Little did Eli know, this small seed was part of a much larger plan. God had seen his sacrifice, heard his prayer, and was already preparing a miracle. The story of the boy with the kind heart was only just beginning. The next day, the sun rose with the promise of a new adventure. Eli, still feeling the warmth from his act of kindness, woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He helped his mother with chores around their small cottage, his spirit lighter than usual. Around noon, a horse-drawn carriage, unlike any seen before in their humble village, rumbled down the main path. It was grand and ornate, pulled by two strong, white horses. The villagers stopped their work, their eyes wide with curiosity. Who could be visiting their quiet corner of the world? The carriage came to a stop directly in front of Eli's tiny home. A well-dressed man stepped out, his clothes made of fine fabric and his boots polished to a shine. He looked around and then his eyes landed on Eli. "Are you the boy they call Eli?" he asked, his voice kind but firm. Eli, a little intimidated, nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." The man smiled. "I am a servant of the woman you met yesterday under the oak tree. She is the wife of a wealthy merchant. They were traveling when their carriage broke down, and she became separated from her party. She was lost, hungry, and had given up hope when you appeared." The man's words hung in the air. The woman, the wife of a wealthy merchant? Eli was stunned. "She sent me to find you," the man continued. She could not stop speaking of the boy with a heart of gold who shared his only meal. "She and her husband wished to thank you personally." He then gestured to the carriage, where the woman from yesterday was now seated. She was no longer in torn clothes, but dressed in a beautiful gown, her face clean and her eyes bright. She smiled warmly at Eli, a smile that reached deep into his soul. "Come," the man said. "They have invited your family to their home." Eli's parents, who had come out of the house, were speechless. They looked at each other, then at Eli, a mixture of pride and disbelief on their faces. They humbly accepted the invitation. The journey to the merchant's home was like a dream. It was a large estate on the outskirts of a bustling city, a world away from their simple village life. The merchant, a kind-faced man with a generous smile, greeted them at the door. "Young man," he said, placing a hand on Ellie's shoulder, "your simple act of kindness saved my wife. You showed her compassion when she was at her lowest. We can never truly repay you, but we want to try." He then explained his offer. He wanted to provide for Ellie's family. He would give them a new, comfortable home, ensure they always had enough food, and most importantly, he would pay for Ellie's education so that his bright mind and kind heart could flourish. Ellie's family was overwhelmed with gratitude. Tears of joy streamed down his mother's face as she hugged him tightly, whispering, "You see, my son, a little given with love is truly worth more than gold." Ellie's life was transformed that day, not just by the wealth and comfort, but by the profound understanding he gained. He learned that true wealth wasn't in what you owned, but in what you gave. He learned that God works in mysterious ways, turning a small loaf of bread into a lifetime of blessings. As he grew, Eli never forgot the lesson of that day. He dedicated his life to helping others, using the resources he had been given to spread kindness and hope. His story became a legend in his village and beyond, a timeless reminder that a single act of selfless giving, no matter how small, can create ripples of goodness that change the world. It all started with a boy, his lunch, and a choice to listen to the whisper of his kind heart. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Remember, you have the power to create a miracle with a simple act of kindness. See you in the next video.